Oh, hi class. This is your teacher, Alex. Something I do a lot in my creative writing classes, whether it's a class about doing our own writing or about reading poetry and fiction, is sit around a table with the students in the class and have a conversation. And that seems like a very basic thing, but the fact is that it's very difficult to do in this medium, the online medium. I think online has a lot of advantages, but having a face-to-face conversation is not one of them. So I am going to have a conversation with myself and force you to listen to it. Right. Not really. I mean, yes, I am going to have a conversation with myself, and you will be forced to listen to it. But the point here is that I want to simulate the kind of thing that happens in the face-to-face environment, and then ask you to do what I'm about to model on your own in Module 7, which will be a response to Dan Major's poem Kish Kash Katori. So I'm going to do a close reading here, as if I were having a conversation with a very silent conversational partner. So we're going to talk about Laura Solomon's poem It, which you've already encountered along with Dan's, but we haven't really done any analysis of it. So I'm going to start by reading this poem, reading it aloud, and that's something that I recommend you do whenever you first encounter a poem that you are trying to understand more fully. It. And if in dreams it becomes clearer to me that I am not it, but have been, at some point tagged, and thereby separated from the group in a blindfolded way, then flail I will always into another, all my life pursue it in dreams of becoming else-like, or else adding else's on. How I've wanted to encounter you, and so through you too, it, to correct my sightlessness, which has always been one as if belonging to a child, so that whenever the one tagged the other, it was the touch that distinguished the touching one from the touched, and so divided the two by tethering them together. And you can see that reading it aloud, there's so much going on with the sound. The rhythm is meticulous and intricate, and the sounds coming and going, the hard sounds, blindfolded, but then the soft sounds, then flail I will always into another, then flail I will always. So let's do a reading of this poem. It's called It, which immediately asks us a question. What is it? It is it, of course, but what is it? We're wanting to know. And if it's the kind of word you're not supposed to use in an essay, because it's ambiguous. And it's very intentional. It's a capital It, too. And if in dreams it becomes clearer to me that I am not it, but have been, I'll stop right there. The it is becoming more clear in dreams, meaning it's not clear necessarily in the light of day. Maybe somehow in a dream it will become more clear. The poet realizes that he or she is not it, but may have been, but have been at some point. Maybe has this person encountered it, embodied it. And then the poet plays a trick on us. Have been, next line, at some point tagged. That I am not it, but have been. That's where we stop. At some point tagged. And now we're being played with a little bit, but also given multiple meanings here, because the third line opens up the meaning. You've got this bifurcation now, where the game of tag, in which one becomes it by being touched, is invoked. So I may have been at some point tagged, and that changes how we read it before. Before we were asking, well, has this speaker been it? No, at some point the speaker may have been tagged, and thereby separated from the group in a blindfolded way. And this is what happens when you're tagged and you're it. You're set apart from the others, And the blindfold is not being able to see. It's the kind of separation where you're not seeing into the group what's going on, or into the hearts of others. And you're left to flail. Then flail I will always, right? Because you can't see and you're just doing your best to make contact. And you're starting to realize that this poem is about making contact with others and interactions that people are having. Then flail I will always into another what? Another flailer maybe, another person who's been separated from the group in a blindfolded way. Then flail I will always into another, all my life pursue it in dreams. Again, in dreams it becomes clearer. In dreams, and the poet uses the line again, in dreams of becoming else-like, or else adding else's on. We know this idea of becoming else-like by being tagged, but then an else adding else's on, and so these else's, they're flailing in a blindfolded way into one another, and they're coming into contact, and then they're becoming less lonely. They're actually making this contact. That is it. It is becoming clearer and clearer as we go on with this poem. And so the else's coming together is fulfilling this need that the speaker of the poem has. How I've wanted to encounter you, and so through you too, it to correct my sightlessness. And you see how meaningful this encounter is, how the flailing, the blindfolded flailing, actually is creating the meaning of it, and it's also fulfilling the need of it, to correct my sightlessness by encountering. And you can see how desperate the speaker is for this kind of contact. To correct my sightlessness, which has always been one as if belonging to a child, the sightlessness of a child, the blindness of not seeing into the hearts of others, not seeing what's really happening in the world, so that whenever the one tagged the other, it was the touch that distinguished the touching one from the touched. It's not the sight, it's not the knowledge of what's in the heart, but it's the touching and the flailing and the desire to be united. And this is when the poem becomes a love poem, and so divided the two by tethering them together. And so the touching that distinguishes is the thing that holds them together. So you know you're apart because you can actually touch the other entity, but you also then become tethered together. And this is the feeling of love, when we know we're divided, and we're hopelessly divided much of the time, but we're held together. And we should keep our own identities as we're held together. We must keep our own identities, but we may fulfill the promise of it by doing our flailing, which we now realize is the need, the desperation for love of another, of a group, romantic love, filial love, platonic love of any kind. It's human beings being together and the complications there. So that's one reading of this poem. You'll have your own reading of the poem, and every one of you will have your own reading of the poem, and every time we read the poem, one of us or all of us as a group, we're creating the meaning then. I mean, the poem is a collection of words, and until we encounter it and make meaning of it, it is off on its own. It's passive. It's just in the world as an object, and then we interpret it with our minds and turn it into something. And that is why your reading of the poem, no matter what it is the right reading when you've read it. It is the poem. Your reading of the poem is the poem. So, as I said in Unit 7, Module 7, I'm going to ask you to do the same kind of thing with Dan Major's poem, and I don't want you to go crazy and write 20 pages, but I want you to do a close reading and pick out the things that are really important to you, the things that you are able to create meaning from. So, live from the Honors College, 504 Goodell, this is Alex Phillips with another installment of Writing, the super ultra awesome writing, signing off. Good night, folks.